All right, Ivan, how are you today?
Very good, Stuart. How are you? It's getting a little bit chilly out there, isn't it?
It is getting chilly. That's right. The nighttime temperatures are dropping. That's right. Very
It's dropping
cold.
massively.
Very cold at night. The days have been not too bad, as I mentioned last week, but the night's cold.
It is very cold, and then you can tell also the different times in the light hours. When I go
That's right.
to the office in the morning, going out on the street at 7 and having 2, 3 degrees is getting
Yeah, that's right.
not the kind of summer that we are used to here. But
That's right.
we are
And
here for the goods and for the bads.
that's right. And pitch black when you leave to go to work, and pitch black when you come home. That's it. That's it.
That's it.
But anyway, all right, good. What did you want to speak about this week, Ivan?
Yeah, so I want to bring another topic to the table.
Good.
And well, as always, Stuart, my current opinions might not represent my future opinions.
Okay. All right. Good.
But what I wanted to talk about today maybe is a little bit of the work environment, the curriculums in Spain, maybe talking a little bit with the recruitment processes, difference that I have seen, in my opinion, between the countries that I have been living in, maybe a little bit with education and
Good.
especially universities or more superior education in that regard, and differences in between different schemes.
All right. Very good. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
So let's start maybe with the CVs, one of the typical things. And as always, generalizations are always bad, but in my experience, we usually come across as one of the main differences. In Spain, and for Spanish-speaking countries in general, we tend to put the studies first in that regard. So even maybe from high school and university, while in the Anglo-Saxon environment, usually what comes first, well, after your details, obviously, the thing that comes first is usually your professional experience.
Yeah.
What places have you been working on? What kind of duties have you been performing?
Yeah.
So that is a big difference that I have seen in that way. One of the things
Yeah.
that we always talk is about the difference in culture and the history and where that comes from. I'm not pretending to make sense out of everything, but maybe one of the explanations in that way is that maybe in Spain, the education and maybe like the name of the institution where you perform your studies might have like an influence. There will be maybe Catholic schools or high schools or centros privados, centros
Okay.
concertados that maybe
Yeah.
give a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit more of an influence in that regard. I don't really
Okay.
know what are your thoughts in that sense, Stuart?
Well, to be honest, I haven't really seen too much of the type of schools. I haven't really focused too much on that. But what I have noticed is that whereas, let's say, for example, in a CV in Australia, for example, you'll put down the university that you went to. If you went to university, you'll put down the high school that you went to. If you're looking for a job just out of school, you might put down a specialized course that you did, but you won't go into too much detail. So you'll say Bachelor of Arts, University of Western Australia, 1998 or whatever, right? But what I've noticed here is that people put down a lot of detail regarding their education. So they'll say Universidad Complutense, and they'll write a paragraph on what they did at the university. I've seen that on CVs, and that sort of seems to be irrelevant from what I've seen in Australian CVs at least.
Yeah. In Spain, especially if you have like a dissertation, like a proyecto fin de carrera is used to call here, or if any teacher during your university years were like a public figure, maybe sometimes in things like law, you might have like, I don't know, politicians or very important lawyers or judges or economists to that regard. They tend to mention that kind of like
Yeah,
connection or link, no? And again, we have mentioned about
that's it.
the culture of knowing people. I will not mention enchufe because that is just just maybe like a tangential context that you have met that person or you have been in that school, but it's kind of like people from the same kind of like background get together,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
also because of the education being at the top, I think it
yeah,
also
yeah, yeah,
transfers what kind of the importance is especially to get that interview. At the end of the day, the CV is your entry point in order to get into the next stage that potentially or usually
Yeah.
is like that phone call or that interview face to face.
That's right. That's
So
right.
yeah, that's slightly
And
different, I guess.
that's right. And it also is a characteristic nowadays, especially, and probably even in your day when you were studying, Ivan, that the concept of the titulitis, where people were doing a lot of different courses and a lot of different. Here they call them masters. I think it's not the equivalent of a university masters in a British university, but sort of like a specialized course that people do to make them more employable. And sometimes you get on a CV, 5, 6, maybe 7 of these types of courses, these master's courses.
Yeah. And I think, well, just to give an explanation, that would be my explanation, because of my background or my family, and that is true. Maybe my generation, I was born in the 80s. Maybe we came, or maybe we were like the second generation. My brother was from the 70s, but our parents lived under the dictatorship. Not many people went to high education. Just to say, maybe the typical basic secondary school, that will be the tops. And in the cultural background back at the day, they were like an extra pair of hands to help the family, maybe in the field or in the shop or whatever your
People started
family.
working early.
Correct. So not everybody went to university. So maybe that cultural fixation in Spain with, my children has to go to university, maybe has something to it. So, as you mentioned, that titulitis, having the paper or that certificate, it was so important because during generation, there were like a one single digit, maybe percentage of the population that went up there. So it was maybe like a sense of success bringing to the family, that kind of thing.
That's
So
right.
yeah, I
That's
totally
right.
agree with that definition.
And I think it
100%.
was also common back in the maybe 60s and 70s for people to leave school even around the age of 13 or 14 and start working for a company and then get their education through the company as well. So maybe they started working for a bank, and the bank would, have them working there from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the evening, they would go to high school to get the diploma, and then after that, they would maybe go to university, paid for by the bank as well. So there was a lot of that going on as well, wasn't there?
Yeah. There was a time where obviously Spain was growing, mainly towards the end of the dictatorship. Just remember that Franco died in 1975. So in the 60s, as you mentioned, and 70s mainly, there was a lot of opportunities. There was a lot of
Absolutely.
more companies maybe settling in and getting a little bit more of the economic scene in that time. In the previous years, maybe in the 40s, in the 50s, we were talking more of a much more difficult environment where pretty much, Spain missed the Marshall Program and all that investment that America put in Europe after the Second World War.
But
so
it came
we were
later.
just,
It came later, which is what you're saying. Towards the end
correct.
of the 60s, 70s. That's it.
That's it. So no, and that's absolutely right. There were plenty of opportunities, and there were no, people wanted to work. They saw
That's it.
the misery from the war. They really live it in first hand. So
That's
they
right.
just wanted to work and contribute. And also we have the lack in a sense that the country have those positions nowadays. There's a lot of youth that wanted to get into the labor force, and they cannot because there is not much opportunity. Right. So they revert into that, getting more prepared, getting more títulos, getting more courses.
That's
so
right. Yeah,
it's like an endless loop.
It's gone from one extreme to the other. That's right. So
that's it.
I mean, I remember meeting when I first came people that were working in very high positions in banks, like a position that they call here, maybe not director general, but like an important person in the bank, next level down. And they were open. They left school at 14, were educated with the help of the bank, and grew in the company. But that changed completely.
That's it. No, 100%. And that is like the baby boomers generation, where they didn't have that other generation kind of like on top of. So they have everything to do. Spain coming out of the civil war and the dictatorship, not having that much international funds. So we have a generation in that sense that had a lot of opportunities, I guess, in comparison with today's, that all those
privileged generation in that sense, right?
correct, yeah, in that sense. I don't want to get or start any war. There could be a topic for a different day. This generation
That's it.
fight is out there very often as well. But
That's
in
it.
that sense, in comparison with the entry level, at the end of the day, you don't get into the labor force, into the job market in your 20s. I think it's worldwide. It's not just Spain only. I think it's going to be very difficult to get traction, to get that experience.
Yeah.
So 100% is totally different environment.
That's right. That's it. And all the generation that you mentioned, that baby boomer generation, they're the ones that are currently retiring or in the first years of their retirements, and they're fighting to get their pensions, guaranteed and increases every year. That's right. And not really worried about where the money's coming from.
Exactly.
But again, that's a conversation for another day, because
another interesting topic.
That's right.
That linked very well with the next one, kind of like the recruitment and the difference into what I perceive really in the recruitment. I think, in my opinion, again, this is what I have seen. This is my experience. Everybody might have their own, totally in line with mine or totally different. So we will wait for some comments below. But I think in the recruitment in Spain, one of the things that the recruiters, I have a technical background, okay, but I have been involved in a lot of recruitment process from the recruiter point of view. I have built up my teams, etc., etc. I think from the recruiter point of view, and I put the Spanish label, they tend to focus maybe in those gaps in your CV. Okay, you have not been working or studying in a certain year. What happened to you?
Okay, so if you took a gap year, if you took a year off after university, they're going to question that.
Correct. They are going to question that, and I think that in contraposition in the Anglo-Saxon or in Ireland or the UK, that is mainly my experience. People, it's quite widespread to have like a gap year. I don't know, I just decide to volunteer for this or that, or I don't know, you look after your family because you came out of difficult times and you just need to give a hand at home.
Yeah.
There is no question, or there is not too much emphasis, I would say, in those things. While maybe in the Spanish point of view, they will be quite inquisitive. Why is that? Like, you couldn't find a job, or you were not good enough to try to get into the market. It will raise some eyebrows. That's for sure.
All right, good. So that's also a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing from that recruitment process, I would say, the commitment. I think Spain have a few values quite engraved. Obviously, these things are changing, and the world is changing as a whole, and Spain is not going to be the last on the queue. I think if in Spain, what they like to see from the recruiter point of view is that kind of commitment with a company. So you have been with the same company, I don't know, for 5, 8, 10 years. They will put a big would work for you. Okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, that's what I would think anyway, and that's what I have perceived with talking with colleagues and other people from the HR world.
Yeah.
And that commitment is, you really want to commit to the company and grow up and take new responsibilities, etc., etc. While in UK and Ireland, my perception when I was talking with similar colleagues in HR is like, why were you staying so long in that company? And is you don't want to progress, you don't want to see other sectors, you don't want to do other things. It's a little bit totally contradictory what you can see in one market versus the other one. But that's the reality. I think
it's interesting that you're saying these things today, where it's 2021, because I remember hearing these things when I first came to Spain in 1998. It's not well seen to take to have a gap year, or to travel and those things. You've got to leave university, try to get a job straight away, And I also heard that, things that like what you were just saying there, that if you're not at a company for a long time, there must be something wrong with you. It's not also well seen to move from company to company jump, if you like.
Exactly. Or having, for example, I will question if somebody have been in a company 1 year and then in the next one 6 months and then for, I don't know, 10 months in the next one. It makes you question. Okay,
Yeah.
you might be a contractor. You may be a totally fair and honest explanation because
Yeah.
of that. Okay, but
Yeah.
maybe from the Spanish point of view, having 3-4 companies in a 5-year time frame, that will definitely raise some eyebrows. Well,
Oh, okay.
is this guy okay? They will maybe ask for references, and maybe it was just a project. I was hired for this project, and that's it. But the first look, the first feeling about reading that kind of thing, it will have some questions, that's for sure. And maybe as you said, it happened in the 90s. Maybe things have not changed as much.
Well, I thought maybe they would have changed, but maybe it's not the case. I don't know. Again, we'll wait and see what people say in the comment section. But I thought maybe there would have been some progress in that area, but perhaps not. But anyway.
Yeah, and from that point, I think one of the main things is also like the universities, the kind of superior educations that you get in one sphere of the world and in the other. Okay, one of the things that I would say is a clear difference is that the kind of education that you can receive. Again, things are changing. The Bologna changed quite a lot of things, how the titles and the degrees are being taught in Spain. I think that didn't apply in the UK because what they wanted to achieve with Bologna is getting a little bit more into the same kind of education that it was in the UK. But in here, what I think, we can talk about this for a whole episode. I would say, usually the Spanish universities, they are not in the typical rankings of top universities and top educations or top performers. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, just going on that Bologna, I think that was quite controversial at the time here in Spain. I think there were even student protests
there was
against
quite a
that,
lot of
wasn't there?
Yeah, there was quite a lot of protests because there was quite a lot of things changing. Before here in Spain, there were the superior education, the university education, they were structured in carreras, in degrees of 3 years or 5 years. So
okay.
usually they were like licenciatura for those with social subjects, like philosophy, languages, any kind of things. And then with ingeniería técnica and ingeniería superior, like for the técnica or much more technical degrees, like could be, I don't know, computer science, architecture as well. It will be kind of like a similar thing as well, but it will be arquitecto técnico or arquitecto. Okay, so there is a clear difference in that. I think there's quite a lot of people that thought that it will bring quite a lot of change because they were with Bologna. One of the main differences is that all those maybe old-fashioned degrees, maybe old-fashioned is not the right word, but like more traditional degrees, what they want to achieve with Bologna is more specialized. So they will maybe move away from that definition or from that name, from that title, to something else more specialized. So maybe where it was, I don't know, one or two IT degrees, now there's 5, and there's such a wide subject. Okay, so there was more specialized in certain fields within that main subject. Maybe the same with mathematics, the same with many other fields. They wanted to have a much more widespread entry-level degrees because everything in Bologna, the degree is 4 years. So they were trying to merge those 3 and 5 in Spain into 4, and then get into a superior one that it will be a master. Usually the master, in Spain, I think it was like 2 years back at that time, and now it's getting into 1. But again, there will be differences depending where you are. So yeah, after that one, I think it was, and I really feel that it's a little bit unfair to not have the Spanish universities in that ranking. But we have to remember that those rankings, they are made by mainly American or English universities with a very specific way of talk, very specific learning courses or papers. Okay, so I would maybe highlight. Um, like public speaking is part of that, working groups, it was part of like that. That is one of the things that Bologna is trying to bring it on, okay? While back at that time in Spain, the education, I think in my experience as well, it was quite of a, I don't know, like a master class, okay? The teacher came there, deliver a speech or a lesson, okay? And you just write notes and then you go to a exam.
Well,
Okay,
that's
so
right, and a lot of people were a lot of the criticism comes from like a memory-based type of learning process,
exactly.
where you get the lecturer, for example, gives his speech, and then basically when just before the exam, everybody has to cram, a lot in order to pass the exam according to what the criteria of the course. And it's
That's
not,
it.
there's not a lot of what's the word,
Reasoning.
well, yeah, not so much practical. It's as I said, it's more theory, I think, right?
Yeah, I would say in the Spanish university at that time, they were more like a make or break. Okay, those one they were good for that and they were understanding, or maybe I don't know, they went into extra classes at night to try to catch up with the rest of the class. They were the ones that perform. Okay, so basically the ones who didn't give up, the ones who they were, oh, this is too difficult, or I don't have much of a friendly environment, let's say, because at the end of the day, this is not, or it was not, sorry, back then, much of a friendly environment. It was just your partner working with you, beside you. It was your competitor, and probably that is the one, the kind of environment that they wanted to imbibe in the university life. So the product of that is that, I think, and again, I came from a technical point of view, the people who are really good at problem solving, these people were super valid. Why? Because they didn't have any kind of easiness trying to get the degree. So they get the diploma, they get the ingeniería técnica or arquitectura, is because they have been fighting against all odds. And probably teachers that they were kind of seeing like the one who only every year they only pass 3 people, okay? And, and nowadays this can be unthinkable, but back then it was like that teacher that every generation, every course, year after year, they remember because, oh yeah, you passed with that teacher, oh my god. So
because it was extremely difficult.
exactly. So back then, and again, things are changing now. But back then, you get a generation of people, of basically survivors. You went to university in Spain, and you were really ready for any kind of challenge. But because you will find your way to get it done, okay, and get it sorted.
But again, I think that's the general purpose of. But what you're saying here is that the numbers were so small, the majority failed, and only 3, 4, 5, 6 people managed to get through that process. Whereas maybe in universities in another country, everybody's being taught that that's how you need to study, preparing you for those task-based. Do you know what I mean?
Correct. Yeah. And that's what when I have done recruitment and candidacies from English background or American background or Irish background, they are very good working in teams, speaking in public, sellers. I have kind of
problem solving,
like a
as you said.
jokingly.
No.
More about selling, this is what they
Selling,
have to
okay.
do, or pitching, more than selling, I would say. While maybe from the technical point of view, to be honest, any Spanish student from that era, it will be 10 times much better than an English or an Anglo-Saxon educated one.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they were really passed through that tough, I don't know, SAS,
tough system,
university environment, that when the final product, it was somebody with that it was ready for anything, but it was absolutely terrible at communicating, working in teams, or pitching. You might have the brilliant idea, following the IT simile. You can have a brilliant code, a brilliant software, but you were unable to pitch it. How good is that? How good is this going to solve your client's problems? And that is, depending
key
what kind
to
of
business. That's it.
exactly, depending what kind of position you are trying to fill. For any technical problem solving skills that is needed, I will get for a Spanish one 100%, no doubt whatsoever, because I know what they have been going through.
Yeah.
I know that they are good, and again, it's generalization. But the same way, for any kind of like pitching or sales position, I will go for an American, for a British 100%, because that's what they do best. So that's quite a lot of difference. And again, coming back to the university ranking, it is unfair, I think, in my point of view, that you rank universities with this same ruler when the education system was totally different. You will never achieve the top 100, because what your way of getting that knowledge into your pupils is absolutely different. So I would like to see it that way anyway. Let's see what the people mention on the comments.
Well, we'll see. We'll see in the comment section how people react. Exactly right. Anyway, we'll start to wrap it up there, Ivan, because I have to move on. But good speaking to you again, and we'll be in contact for next week.
Perfect, Stuart. As always, stay safe, and pleasure to be here.
All right. See you later. Have a good day.
Take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.